our universe, where it was created, the Big Bang Theory, is essentially right in its simplicity. But apparently what happened was, as vibrations, as the universe starts to excel in light this way, there are pockets, and you have to look at it as a holographic projection of light. When you put a shadow into a light, it creates a variance of the light. Well, apparently what happens is things that don't ascend or choose to take higher consciousness, they get very, very heavy in weight or in light, whatever you want to call it. And as everything starts to exceed up, bulges, dips in light are created, in frequency are created. And what happens is negativity forms, because of its weight, its heaviness, forms into these pockets. Well, what happens is they form a sac. And eventually what happens is those sacs break. And because everything is spirit and nothing is ever wasted, they form, when they explode, they cast themselves out and they form another universe. They create a space for them to continue. Well, that's how our black holes are. That's how they were formed. Those black holes, if we could get through them, would be to another universe. They're portals. And it would just explode out. Well, that's how our universe was created. Well, because of this new energy that's being formed, pockets of resistance are now being formed all through the universe. And in our galaxy, it's right now between us and Sirius.
So the way that the Andromedans plan to remove the Alpha Draconans would be?
Is basically to try to contain them, and their own energy themselves will suck them into a place of darkness so they can move out into another place. The Greys, the Orion groups, this is going to happen. It's happened before. They know it's happening now, and this is why everybody feels this intense energy. Things are suddenly really starting to increase. And it's simply because it is increasing.
So at a prior time, then, they were sucked out of another universe into Alpha Draconis? Is that basically essentially what happened?
They were sucked from wherever they were into another universe. How somehow that universe, or the beings in that universe, wherever they came from, said, we got to get rid of these guys. And they literally brought them here from their universe and dumped them and said, boom, this is where you are. Because they came here in physical form, which means they had to have been brought here. They didn't evolve like all the other life forms here have evolved. They were brought here in full physical form, which means they were created someplace else and dumped here and said, your history.
Well, someplace else, then, there's some very irresponsible people.
Well, maybe at some point in our eternal history we'll be able to address that issue. But for right now, we need to address our own issues.
Okay, let's go to the World Club then to end this up. And future events. According to the Andromedans, mankind has been manipulated for 5,724 years. Human agents must have participated in this throughout history. Who are some of the major players in this deception? You mentioned Hitler and the Giza intelligence.
Most of the pharaohs. Most of the ancient Egyptian gods. There's so many. I couldn't honestly tell you. History is chock full of it. I think what people need to do is go back and look at what we call mythology and really start giving it a second look. Richard Thompson, in his book, although I've not read it, but I've heard others talk about where he delves into the history of things. And it's also important to remember that just because it's history doesn't mean it's accurate history. Because it has been proven over and over and over again. Whoever wins the war rewrites history. They write it to their benefit, to glorify themselves. And it doesn't mean that that's really what happened. And according to the Andromedans, our next major leaps in consciousness are going to come from science and archaeology. It isn't going to come from any spiritual leader or teachings. It's going to come from someone to say, you know what? Here's the proof. This is true. This is reality. And I don't know what this stuff is. We can't prove that. And it's time we really start paying attention. Maybe at a future time we can share more or do another interview or something.
In a specific way, please describe in detail what the World Club is and who comprises it, and offer some specific examples of how they're controlling the rest of us. The banking circles, maybe?
Yeah, it all evolves around money. The World Bank, International Monetary Fund. I mean, they've got the whole world in debt. You know, governments are giving away their mineral rights in perpetuity. The United States government is now in a position to declare a national state of emergency, suspend the Constitution of the United States, and nationalize. And the reason they will have to nationalize is because our debt far exceeds any ability to pay it back.
So who are the collectors? What countries are the collectors?
It's not a country, it's a group of men. It's a group of human beings.
It's a group of human beings.
Right. The aliens don't need money. They don't need an American Express card.
So if the rest
it's a man-made thing.
If the rest of us simply say, we're not paying back the debt, that's it, we're starting over, you can forget your whole system, then we can erase that whole thing and start over.
That's right. If we had a real president in office, and Kennedy was probably really the last one, what he should do is just get on TV and spell it all out. Surround himself with people that maybe he can trust to protect his life. You should get on television before Congress and all the houses, House of Representatives, in front of everybody, and spend 3 hours and give everybody a real education. Number one, the Federal Reserve is private. Number two, our debt isn't real. Number three, we've gotten ourselves into this big mess because past presidents sold us out for comfort and for money. And apologize. And then what he ought to tell, and just say that I'm nationalizing all the banks under the United States Treasury. We're going back to a silver standard, just like the Constitution says, and give everybody an opportunity to get back on track here, to maintain our standard of living and just start healing, And then the next thing I would say is, or make sure if there were any POWs alive, that they came back home. And I would start healing all of that crap. The fact that, that our POWs were sold out because of a debt, because of $3 billion, when we've wasted $3 billion or a promise to Vietnam, when we've wasted that kind of money on such stupid things as studying the sexual habits of a tsetse fly or frogs mating. I mean, it's unconscionable that we've allowed our government to do this.
Alex, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can do some real brief answers to some of these last couple things, just real brief. The United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union, according to your sources, have been building secret technologies and bases on Earth, the Moon, and Mars for some time. Where are these bases to be found on the Moon?
Where are they?
Yeah.
They're on the dark side.
And do you know what the locations are, what they're called?
Yes. One is under Jules Verne. God, I wish I had those notes in front of me. Let's come back to that.
Okay. Have they told you anything about Area 51 or Dulce, New Mexico?
Yeah, there were a lot of stuff there. The actual underground base is not underneath Arcoleta Mesa. It's actually 20 miles to the northwest. That's just an entrance point in and out.
This is Area 51?
This is in New Mexico, Dulce.
Okay.
It's not exactly right there. As far as Area 51, yes, there's a lot of stuff that was going on there, but a lot of that has been moved, and it's now in New Mexico, in the Sandia, underneath the Sandia Laboratory.
Diego Garcia Island.
Diego Garcia Island, there's a base there. Pine Gap. Diego Garcia Island, there's anti-gravity anomalies there, and this is how they were able to blow a lot of equipment into space without using rockets, and then they would have the UFO-type craft, which we built from technology we were given. They would hook a tow chain to it, and like a tow barge, just tow it to the moon.
Okay, and you mentioned...
And it runs, and the equipment that's there is run on free energy, stuff that was built that was created in the 1920s, that we've been absolutely not privy to. We haven't had to pump 1 gallon of oil out of the ground since the late 1920s. They've had free energy, but because of money, they've be controlled. They've allowed us to pollute the environment, to devastate the oceans because of petroleum products when we don't need it for money.
Which brings us briefly to alternative 4.
When the Martian base fell, when the Martian base fell, the world government, those elite, figured out, well, we don't have any place to go now. The moon is not set up for long